Hello, this is Josh Belk with the Belk on Business podcast. Today we're going to talk is where you kind of begin towards wrapping up 2024, talking about some different tax strategies that you may be able to utilize inside of your business. Last week we talked about the Augusta rule. Today we're going to talk about hiring children inside of our business, hiring our children inside of our business. And if you're at all like myself, have younger, well, my children are older now, they're no longer children, but when my children were younger, on occasion we would hire them, and especially as they entered into their teenage years, we began hiring them to do legitimate work inside of our business. And we didn't do it at the time primarily just for the tax benefit for it. The emphasis was more on trying to create some sort of level of discipline and responsibility as my boys are male, obviously, so they're as young men, and preparing them for adulthood. And I think if you had daughters, the same thing would apply there as well, trying to rear your children in a way to instill into them a work ethic and a sense of responsibility, and also a sense of ownership, and I think the pride that even comes along with work. And of course, those are the intangible benefits of hiring your children inside of your business. But today I'm going to focus a little bit on obviously on the tax side. So hiring your children inside of your business, what is required? We see a number of returns that come in, and actually talk to individuals as well as I go out and speak, and it seems to be that too many times people make mistakes in the way they go about in this process, and it creates problems for them, either with the IRS or with the state. So let me kind of talk through some of what those rules are at the federal end, and then kind of give you a little bit also of an overview on the state end, and there's just some practical helps, hopefully, as you go through this process. So hiring your children inside of your business. So first of all, they do need to complete the same paperwork that you would require of any other employee that you bring into your business. So they're going to complete a W-4, they're going to complete the I-9 form, whatever your state requirement forms are that they have. So whatever that hiring packet is, when you bring an employee inside of your business, what do you hand them, or your HR person, what do they hand to that individual to complete? Now, as in your business, probably as in mine, it's not something that I do. Okay, when we hire a new team member, we just hired one here a couple weeks ago. I'm not the one that does that. I have one of my team members oversees that entire process. He knows what needs to happen, and kind of everything in regards to on the front end, the paperwork is completed all the way to making sure that the benefits package, everything, all that is implemented. So, but the W-4, the I-9, the state required paperwork, making sure that is getting completed, including also an employment contract. And so we utilize those, and I think most businesses should. You have a contract with your employees, that employment contract, that would get completed as well. So everything that you would do for an employee coming into your business that was not your child, you're going to also do for your child. Next item, the wage that you pay them must be reasonable and comparable to other employees inside of your business doing the same work, or an outside business if it's a position. For example, when my children were younger, we would have them going through, and they may pay them to clean up the office, to put things away, to do those types of things. I did not have a janitorial person inside of my office, okay? So it wasn't like they were replacing a position, or I had a comparable. But if I were to go out and I were going to hire at maybe it was a temp agency, or hire an outside company to come in and do the work, what is that wage? And that would be considered a reasonable wage. So what is that reasonable and comparable wage? And so you can't bring them in and pay them $1,000 an hour for 14 hours, and they're coming in, but they're doing kind of more kind of organizational type task. It just doesn't make sense. So it does have to align with what you pay either on other employees doing the same work, or if you were bringing in an outside individual to do that work, what would they be paid? Next, in regards to your entity structure. So if you have a sole proprietor, that's a single member LLC, or if you have a multi-member LLC, taxed as a partnership or a partnership, okay, you can bring them in, and there would be no FICA tax, so that would be the Social Security Medicare tax withheld from their check. Now, if you have an entity taxed as an S Corp, okay, or as a C Corp, you can pay them, but they're going to be paid just like every other employee, and you are going to have to withhold the FICA component. So where the big tax benefit comes in is that is essentially it's the FICA savings. So if you do end up in a situation, and I'm from an actual payroll tax perspective, from an overall perspective, the tax savings would be if you did not pay your children to work inside of your business, you would essentially end up paying it at your rate as a parent, which is generally going to be higher than the children's rate. So you're still going to see a tax savings, even if it's within your business taxes and S corp. But you're not going to have to reach the greatest amount of benefit, which would be indeed if you could pay them without having to pay that Social Security Medicare portion. So if you have a single member LLC, which is taxed as a proprietorship, a disregarded entity, or a multi-member LLC, taxed as a partnership, you can pay them, and you do not have to withhold the FICA tax. Now, if they are over and I'll get to that here in just a moment in regard to the withholding tax. And then also, if you're structured this way, there would be no federal unemployment tax. Now, the state unemployment, most states align with this rule, but you want to check with the state unemployment tax side to make sure whether or not they would also be exempted from the state unemployment tax. Now, if you have a corporation, S corp, or an LLC taxed as an S corp, what you can do is set up a management company owned by the parent, and then pay that management fee to that LLC, and then pay them. Now, however, I had a situation this past week with a client that just onboarded. They did this, but what they did not do was to pay that employee to pay their children via a W-2. That's kind of an important component of this, and I think the area that the mistake is made most often, that either they want to consider them a 1099, and there is no such thing as a 1099 employee. Okay, they want to pay them as a 1099 contractor, or simply not give them any tax document at all. Okay, so you can, if you have an S corp, you have a management company. That's an LLC, either a single member LLC or a multi-member LLC. Pay that entity. It's owned by you as a parent. However, you would need to set that entity up for payroll. Okay, so you're going to have to go through that entire registration process and make sure the compliance pieces are hit, and issue them a W-2. But you can pay at that management company, and that management company at that point issue the W-2 to your employees. So when you're hiring your children, they must be given a W-2, not a 1099 or nothing. Okay, so they must be actually receive a W-2. No federal income tax up to the $14,600, and that's in 2024. That's the standard deduction amount. So, and that changes every year. And so next year in 2025, it'll go up a bit. Now, this is supposed to sunset in 25. We'll have to see what happens. So when you go into your tax planning moving into 2026, next year, you'll want to see how these rules have changed when you have your call or your meeting with your tax professional. So no federal income tax in 2023, up to $14,600. Now the state amount, you are going to have withholding for anything above and beyond the state exemption or standard deduction amount. Okay, so you want to make sure that you figure out what are your state requirements. So once again, on the front end, you're having them complete the W-4. You're going to have them complete your state equivalent of the W-4, and then that will dictate in regards to at what point you end up withholding state income tax out of your child paycheck. Okay, so once again, I can't reiterate this enough. It must be on a W-2. So next, with hiring your children, you cannot pay them to do personal job. You cannot pay them inside of your business to do their chores around the house, okay, things of that nature. They must actually be doing work inside the business, and it should be documented. It must be documented, okay? Next, the wages must be deposited into your child bank account. So you cannot go through and have those funds diverted into your mom or dad's bank account. Okay, it must go into the child bank account. So when you go through, if your child doesn't have a bank account, you want to hire them inside of your business. They're going to do legitimate work inside of your business. Once again, it must be business duties, not personal duties. And so you're actually going to pay them. You need to go through and get a bank account set up for them, and then have those funds directly deposited into your child's bank account. Now, your child can go through and fund an IRA or Roth IRA. Okay, that $7,000 of earned income, it must be earned income. And so if you're going through and you're paying them a W-2, what you can do is put the funds into your child's bank account. Then they turn around and begin to fund their retirement. Okay, so that is something else that also can be done. Now, there may not be a great benefit on the federal end to doing a traditional IRA since they're essentially going to be exempted from paying the income tax. So it might be prudent to fund a Roth IRA. And so then they're not only not paying taxes on the front end because they're under the federal exemption amount. Once again, they may still have state income tax responsibility, but then that money will go tax-free, and then they'll pull it out when they can pull it out when they become of age, and they once again would not have income tax paid on that either. Another thing you need to be pay attention to is our child labor laws. So on the federal end, okay, so on the federal end, children of any age are generally permitted to work for a business entirely owned by their parents, except for certain areas. So mining, manufacturing, other occupations that the Department of Labor has determined to be declared hazardous. So when you kind of look in those areas, if you're working with chemicals or something that can be hazardous, mining, many times excavation, things of that nature, those are kind of dangerous jobs. And so those you would not be able to hire your child in those particular areas because the DOL has determined, the federal Department of Labor, Secretary of Labor has determined those particular jobs to be hazardous. And so those would be excluded. Now, most states have much stricter rules. California is one I'd like to mention the most. For example, in California, you cannot hire your child until they're up to 14. If they're between 14 and 18, you have to have a letter from the school, definitely government overreach, and I have a lot of personal opinion on that. I can't, the state of California is quite deplorable to me in regards to the way that they kind of have run this nanny state and the overreach. But they have very odd laws, okay? And so they have one that your child has to be 14. If they're between 14 and 18, of course, it seems to be in so many other areas, they want to take away your freedom as a parent. And they say, well, you have to come to us as a state and the school, and you have to have a little note from the government that says your child is allowed to work. Okay. Now, you may disagree with that. Sorry, I ended up on a sidebar there. No, I'm not sorry. But it ends up one of those states where you have to just understand what the rules are. Okay, that you have to get a letter. Now, under certain ages in California, once again, odd rules that they say they're more strict in the areas. And they actually give more freedom to the entertainment industry, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, so you have to understand what your state rules are and what they are. And if you're in a state, and I live, and also my business is in Indiana, they are a lot less. They're a more traditionally conservative state. They stay out of my business for the most part. And so on that end, they allow for me as a business owner to have a lot more freedom inside of my business and what I do. And so in my state, I was able to hire my child at a younger age. And I still had to comply with all the rules that are there on the federal end which is normal, the W-4 and the I-9 and the state equivalent here in Indiana. And all that was done. So once again, make sure you understand what the child labor laws are on the federal end, and then also on the state labor laws as well. So some states, and many states do, have age restrictions that well surpass what the federal law says. So make sure you are aware of the labor laws in your state. Look those up. Make sure that you understand them. Okay. So, and states will generally have a minimum age for employment, what type of work is prohibited, what hours are permitted. So this is the other end as well. In Indiana, we do have rules in regards to what hours they can work. And so if your child is underage, generally they don't want your child especially during the school year, and they have the rule here in Indiana, and it may be 8 or 9 o'clock and then up to sometime in the morning. Okay, so they say your child can work after school. They don't want them working during school hours, obviously, and they don't want them working in the middle of the night. And so making sure that you follow those rules as well. So when my children were younger, they'd come in after school, and they would work from after school until generally we went home, and we would pay them for that time period. And you may be able to do that inside of your business as well. And so what type of work so understanding what the minimum age is, what type of work is permitted and prohibited, what types of work is and then also for the school time rules that are there in your state. And most states have restriction because they don't want children not going to school and making sure that they are in school and that they're not working during those school hours. And also going beyond that, what your laws are in your state regarding workers' comp insurance. And so this is the other component as well. And so you need to look at your workers' comp and see what those rules are, making sure you're complying with those as well. So kind of a little bit of detail here, making sure, once again, you're having them complete the right paperwork. You are indeed issuing them a W-2. Your entity is structured in a way that permits you to hire your child for exclusion for FICA taxes. Making sure that if indeed if you are paying them out of an S corp, if you have an S corp or an entity tax as such, if you're wanting to pay them and avoid the FICA that a management company has set up, you pay the management company that's set up for payroll, and then W-2 is issued, making sure that you're complying both with federal and state child labor laws, and then also making sure that your workers' comp insurance rules are also covered. So if you're doing all those things, it can be a great tax benefit. It can be a situation to where you can essentially avoid paying income tax up to federal income tax up to $14,600 per child, provided, once again, they are doing legitimate work inside of your business, and it is documented as such, and you are following all the other rules. Once again, this is Josh Belk with the Belk on Business podcast. Hopefully this podcast did help you some. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Have a wonderful day.